Here is a look at 10 Hollywood heavyweights who completely incinerated their own legacies and lost it all, then versus now 2026 edition. The glitter of Tinseltown is incredibly deceiving. Fame is far more brittle than it appears on the red carpet. 1 minute a celebrity is sitting on top of the world, untouchable and adored, and in the blink of an eye they are scrambling desperately to salvage the scraps of an empire they used to command. In the current landscape of the entertainment industry, fueled by the relentless cycle of social media, 24-hour breaking news, and an audience that never sleeps, a single misstep, a controversial tweet, or a private meltdown can transform into a career-ending global headline before the celebrity even has a chance to call their publicist. In this deep dive, we are spotlighting 10 stars who were once at the very top of the food chain. They didn't just slip up, they made catastrophic choices that derailed their momentum and sent their star power crashing down. Every detail we're about to discuss is based on public record and confirmed reports, and frankly, some of these downfalls are still shocking to witness. Let us kick things off with arguably the most shocking fall from grace in modern history, the Fresh Prince himself, Will Smith. For over 30 years, Will Smith wasn't just an actor. He was a brand, an icon, and perhaps the safest bet in Hollywood history. He was the definition of an A-lister. His rise from the neon colours of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to total global domination was textbook perfection, anchored by juggernauts like Independence Day in 1996, which raked in over $817 million, and the sci-fi comedy classic Men in Black in 1997, which smashed past $589 million worldwide. By the time the 2020s rolled around, Smith was practically royalty. He had massive franchises under his belt, 2 prestigious Oscar nods, and he finally captured the elusive gold statue for Best Actor in 2022 for his powerful performance in King Richard. It was supposed to be his coronation. There are very few human beings on the planet who could match his unique blend of magnetic charisma box, office dominance, and critical acclaim. However, on that fateful night of March 27th, 2022, during the 94th Academy Awards, Smith made a split-second choice that incinerated his reputation instantly. Following a joke by comedian Chris Rock regarding Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, Smith stormed the stage and slapped Rock across the face, a violent act broadcast live to millions of stunned viewers in over 200 countries. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only moments later when he aggressively screamed profanities at Rock from the front row. He single-handedly transformed a night celebrating cinema into one of the most ugly and replayed scandals in the history of television. Even though he offered an apology during his tearful acceptance speech later that night, the public backlash was fierce, especially because viewers noticed he failed to apologise to the victim, Chris Rock, until the next day via social media. The consequences came crashing down immediately. The industry turned its back on him. Within 5 days, the Academy opened an investigation, and by April 8, 2022, the verdict was Smith was hit with a humiliating 10-year ban from attending the Oscars or any Academy-related events. The ripple effect was massive. Netflix put the brakes on his project Fast and Loose, and Sony hit the pause button on the highly anticipated Bad Boys sequels, leaving his schedule empty. Data from celebrity branding experts showed his popularity score plummeting by over 30% in the weeks after the slap, a statistical nosedive rarely seen for a star of his magnitude. Although he managed to avoid handcuffs and criminal charges, the damage to his nice guy persona was total and absolute. He had reshaped his narrative from hero to villain overnight. In the years following the slap trade, Smith has been on a long, arduous apology tour trying to piece his reputation back together. His comeback vehicle, the slavery drama Emancipation in 2022, received a lukewarm reception, and his public strategy shifted towards spiritual reflection and quiet personal development. Now, in 2026, while he is technically still active and teasing potential blockbuster returns, the shadow of that Oscar night assault still looms large, forever staining a once perfect resume. Next up is Thomas Gibson, a man who threw away a golden television career because he could not control his temper. For more than a decade, Thomas Gibson was the stoic face of primetime procedural drama, best known for his intense portrayal of Aaron Hotchner on the smash hit Criminal Minds. From 2005 to 2016, he was the anchor of the show, appearing in more than 250 episodes and helping the network secure massive ratings that frequently topped 10 million weekly viewers. He wasn't just a hired gun, he was integral to the franchise. He stepped behind the camera to direct multiple episodes and was considered the patriarch of the fictional BAU team. Before his crime-solving days, he had already proven his range as a lead on the sitcom Dharma and Greg, which snagged him 2 Golden Globe nominations, proving to the industry that he was a rare talent capable of handling both slapstick comedy and dark, gritty drama with equal ease. However, everything imploded in August 2016. The catalyst was an on-set creative dispute regarding a script that turned physical. Multiple eyewitness accounts confirmed that Gibson actually kicked a writer-producer during the argument, turning a professional disagreement into a physical assault. The reaction from the studio was swift and merciless. He was suspended immediately, and entertainment gossip sites were blasting the news across the internet within hours. The backlash from fans and executives was severe, primarily because this wasn't an isolated bad day. This was a pattern of behaviour for Gibson. He had been involved in a prior on-set altercation in 2010 where he shoved an assistant director, which resulted in mandatory anger management classes. The 2016 kick was the final straw. Barely a few days after the initial suspension news broke, ABC Studios and CBS Television Studios decided they had seen enough. They released a cold joint statement confirming that Gibson had been permanently terminated from the series he helped build. The writers were forced to scramble, writing his character out early in season 12 with a hasty story about Hotchner entering the Federal Witness Protection Program. It was a jarring exit. And industry insiders pointed out that removing such a central pillar of the cast significantly disrupted the chemistry and tone of the series for years to come. For Gibson, the firing was essentially a career death sentence. His momentum ground to a halt, and he has since only booked a few minor obscure roles, such as the low-budget film Shadow Wolves in 2020, which barely saw the light of day. In the years following his ouster, Gibson has largely vanished from the Hollywood spotlight. He pivoted his focus toward personal hobbies like golfing and photography, offering only sporadic life updates to his remaining loyal fan base on social media, a quiet end to a once thunderous career. Even though rumours occasionally swirl about a potential return to Criminal Minds, the show's producers have never actually put an offer on the table. Thomas Gibson's dramatic exit stands as a cautionary tale in Hollywood, frequently cited in conversations about on-set behaviour and how a single, uncontrolled moment of anger can permanently derail a decades-long career. Now let's talk about Megan Fox. Megan Fox skyrocketed to international superstardom at breakneck speed following the release of Transformers in 2007, a massive blockbuster that raked in over $79 million worldwide. That role didn't just introduce her to moviegoers, it plastered her face across the globe, leading to an avalanche of media coverage, countless magazine covers, and lucrative endorsement deals with major brands. By the time 2008 rolled around, she had cemented her status as one of the most Googled and photographed women in Hollywood, and hype for her career reached a fever pitch with the announcement of the franchise's sequel. At the absolute peak of her fame, she was widely considered one of the most powerful and influential young stars in the entertainment business. However, her career trajectory took a sharp and sudden turn in 2009 during an infamous interview with Wonderland magazine. In the article, she didn't hold back describing director Michael Bay with inflammatory language that compared him to dictators, specifically dropping a reference to Hitler. Even though she tried to soften the blow by clarifying that she personally found Bay to be socially awkward rather than evil, the damage was done and the quote circulated like wildfire. Executive producer Steven Spielberg reportedly took serious offence to the comments, leading the studio to make the executive decision to fire her from Transformers Dark of the Moon in 2011. To make matters worse, crew members later released a scathing open letter attacking her work ethic, which only added fuel to the fire and intensified the public backlash. This dismissal proved to be a catastrophic blow to her reputation in the industry. For several years, Fox was relegated to smaller projects, including the cult horror flick Jennifer's Body in 2009, which flopped at the time with only about $31 million at the box office, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2014. While Ninja Turtles was a commercial hit, grossing $493 million, it did little to shake the negative perceptions surrounding her career. The media relentlessly painted her as a difficult diva, a label that scared off casting directors and significantly reduced her opportunities with major studios. During this quiet period, Fox largely stepped away from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to focus on raising her 3 children. However, the tide began to turn in the late 2000s as the industry faced a reckoning regarding sexism and objectification, prompting the public and critics alike to reassess how unfairly she had been treated in her early years. Fox started opening up about the immense pressure she was under and cleared up the misunderstandings that had plagued her public image for so long. Her comeback gained real momentum with roles in films like Till Death in 2021 and Johnny and Clyde in 2022, signalling her return to the spotlight on her own terms. Then there is Jennifer Grey. Jennifer Grey became the undisputed face of 1980s cinema. After landing the lead role in Dirty Dancing in 1987, a movie that pulled in more than $214 million despite having a shoestring budget, and went on to become one of the most beloved and enduring hits of the decade. Her iconic portrayal of Baby earned her a Golden Globe nomination and catapulted her to a level of superstardom that very few young actors ever get to experience. Audiences fell in love with her natural charm and unique look qualities that made her stand out in an industry typically obsessed with cookie-cutter beauty standards. At the height of her visibility, it looked like she was set for a long, steady reign as Hollywood's sweetheart. But her momentum came to a screeching halt shortly after the film's release due to a horrific car accident in Ireland in 1987, which left her with severe long-term emotional trauma. Although she was lucky to survive the crash, the event had a profound and lasting impact on her mental health and her ambition. In the early 1990s, she made the fateful decision to undergo rhinoplasty after hearing constant whispers that her nose was costing her roles. What started as an initial procedure required a second corrective surgery which altered her face so drastically that even close friends reportedly walked right past her without recognising who she was. She later famously described the result as the nose job from hell. The professional consequences were immediate and devastating. Casting directors didn't know what to do with her because they could no longer connect her new face to the star who had led a global phenomenon just a few years prior. The tabloids mercilessly used her as the poster child for plastic surgery gone wrong, and the offers for major film roles completely dried up. Grey kept plugging away at her craft, but she was mostly resigned to small parts on television and independent projects, popping up in shows like Friends in 1995, the film Bounce in 2000, and Red Oaks from 2014 to 2017. Despite the steady work, the A-list heat was gone forever. Her public profile got a massive boost when she won Dancing with the Stars in 2010, proving to the world that she still had a massive loyal fan base rooting for her. In the decade that followed, she reclaimed her own story by writing a memoir and developing a highly anticipated Dirty Dancing sequel, which she is set to both star in and produce. Finally, we have Paula Deen. Paula Deen built herself into one of the most successful and recognisable brands in American food television throughout the 2000s. Dominating the airwaves with multiple hit shows on the Food Network such as Paula's Home Cooking and Paula's Party. She became a household name beloved for her rich southern recipes and a warm, bubbly personality that made viewers feel like family. However, Paula Deen was far more than just a smiling face on daytime television. She was a veritable industry unto herself. By 2013, the Southern chef had authored over a dozen cookbooks, many of which dominated bestseller charts, while simultaneously managing a rapidly growing restaurant empire. Her reach extended into the everyday lives of Americans through massive retail partnerships with giants like Walmart, Target, and QVC, ensuring her cookware and lifestyle products were on shelves everywhere. These ventures saturated markets across the United States, fueling a multi-million-dollar business machine that seemed absolutely unstoppable at its peak. But everything came crashing down in 2013 when a former employee filed a bombshell lawsuit alleging a toxic workplace culture filled with racial discrimination and harassment at an establishment Dean co-owned. During the legal proceedings, Dean sat for a deposition that would ultimately become the smoking gun for her career's destruction. Under oath, she made the fatal admission that she had indeed used racial slurs in the past, a confession that immediately leaked to the press. To make matters worse, she described fantasizing about a plantation-style wedding reception, which would feature African-American men dressed in white jackets serving the guests. Even though she clarified that this racially insensitive concept was never actually brought to life, the mere fact that she verbalized it sparked a firestorm of national outrage once the deposition transcripts went public. The media scrutiny was immediate and ferocious, with damning excerpts playing on loop across every major news network. The corporate response was swift and merciless. The Food Network, the very platform that made her a star, announced they were refusing to renew her contract, severing an 11-year relationship practically overnight. The dominoes continued to fall as retail titans Walmart and Target stripped her merchandise from their stores, while Smithfield Foods publicly terminated their endorsement deal. Financial experts at the time estimated that her brand hemorrhaged millions of dollars in lost sponsorships and licensing fees in the blink of an eye. Although the initial lawsuit regarding discrimination was eventually thrown out of court, the catastrophic blow to her public image had already been dealt. The scandal ignited one of the fiercest debates regarding racism in the food industry that the decade had ever seen, permanently marking her legacy. Despite being effectively cancelled by the mainstream, Dean managed to slowly cultivate a comeback with a significantly smaller, yet fiercely defensive fan base. She pivoted to digital independence, launching her own subscription-based network and YouTube channel, while also opening Paula Deen's family kitchen locations in tourist hotspots and popping up for rare TV cameos. While she never managed to reclaim the ubiquitous cultural dominance she enjoyed in the early 2000s, she has managed to keep her business alive through independent ventures and a core group of supporters. Then there is the tragic trajectory of Cuba Gooding Jr., a man who once possessed the world in the palm of his hand. He was an absolute powerhouse during the 1990s, delivering a string of standout performances that defined the era. His magnetic role in the 1996 hit Jerry Maguire not only stole the show, but earned him the prestigious Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. His acceptance speech was pure adrenaline, punctuated by his shouting of the iconic line, "Show me the money," which instantly became one of the most legendary moments in Oscar history. That gold statue was a key that unlocked every door in Hollywood, leading to blockbuster roles in films like Men of Honor, in the year 2000 Pearl Harbor in 2001, and Radio in 2003. For a solid stretch of years, Gooding was box office gold, starring in movies that collectively grossed hundreds of millions, globally cementing his status as a charismatic and emotionally versatile A-lister. However, his beloved public persona took a dark and sudden turn starting in June of 2019. A woman filed a police report accusing the actor of groping her at a Manhattan bar, leading to Gooding being handcuffed and charged with forcible touching and sexual abuse shortly after. Once the headlines broke, it opened the floodgates. Dozens of other women stepped forward with disturbingly similar stories, with court filings eventually referencing over 30 separate accusers. By October 2019, the situation had escalated legally, with prosecutors indicting him on multiple counts related to several different incidents. The sheer volume of allegations placed an unbearable strain on his career, turning him from a beloved star into pariah almost instantly. The scandal completely eclipsed his professional life, halting any film projects as the messy legal battles dragged on for years. Finally, in 2022, Gooding took a plea deal, formally admitting to one count of forcibly touching a woman at a nightclub to bring the saga to a close. This legal manoeuvring allowed him to bypass a prison sentence, provided he attended counselling and stayed out of trouble for a set time, which would eventually downgrade the conviction to a mere violation. The lenient nature of the agreement sparked fury among many of his accusers, who felt the justice system had minimised the trauma and severity of their collective experiences. In the meantime, the entertainment industry effectively ghosted him, with major studios refusing to touch him. His presence in high-budget Hollywood productions evaporated completely since the plea deal. Gooding has been forced to keep a very low profile. He has been relegated to small roles in obscure independent films and the occasional public appearance, a far cry from his days as a mainstream superstar. Industry insiders and trade magazines frequently cite his downfall as a textbook case study. It serves as a grim reminder of how allegations of sexual misconduct, particularly when corroborated by a multitude of voices, can permanently dismantle even the most celebrated actor's career. Finally, we have the bizarre and disturbing case of Armie Hammer. Hammer first grabbed the world's attention with his incredible dual performance playing the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network in 2010, a box office smash that raked in over $224 million and garnered massive critical praise. His star power only intensified as he landed prestigious roles in films like J. Edgar in 2011. He moved on to big budgets with The Lone Ranger in 2013, but his true artistic peak came with Call Me By Your Name in 2017, a film that snagged 4 Academy Award nods. Critics and audiences alike were mesmerised by Hammer's portrayal of Oliver, praising the role for its subtle nuance and devastating emotional weight. As the 2010s drew to a close, Hammer looked unstoppable, seemingly positioned for decades of leading man status. Every major studio in town had him on their shortlist for high-visibility blockbusters and prestige dramas. But in early 2021, the floor fell out from under him when a series of graphic and disturbing Instagram DMs, allegedly written by Hammer, were leaked to the internet. The private messages that leaked were absolutely horrifying, filled with dark, cannibalistic fantasies and graphic descriptions of violence that instantly set the internet on fire. Once that initial door was opened, the floodgates burst and a string of women stepped into the light to accuse him of twisted psychological games, emotional torment, and situations where consent was dangerously blurred. Hammer's team went into immediate damage control, vehemently denying every single claim and insisting that the screenshots were either total fakes or ripped completely out of context to paint him as a villain. But the sheer volume of horror stories was impossible to ignore, creating a massive media storm that placed every aspect of his private life under a magnifying glass. It didn't take long for his entire world to come crashing down around him in spectacular fashion. In a matter of weeks, he went from Hollywood royalty to a total pariah, getting booted from huge projects like the Jennifer Lopez rom-com Shotgun Wedding and the highly anticipated Godfather series The Offer. Even his own agents at WME decided he was too toxic to represent and cut ties, while film studios scrambled to scrub him from their rosters and recast his parts before the films even hit theatres. By 2022, the situation grew even grimmer with the release of the docuseries House of Hammer, which gave his accusers a global platform and dug up the disturbingly dark history of the entire Hammer family dynasty. That show was essentially the final nail in the coffin for his reputation, cementing the public's belief that his career as a leading man was dead and buried. After that, Hammer practically vanished from the public eye, retreating into the shadows to avoid the paparazzi flashbulbs that used to follow his every move. Reports surfacing in 2022 and 2023 claimed he had traded the red carpet for a resort uniform, allegedly selling timeshares in the Cayman Islands just to make ends meet. Throughout this strange exile, he has remained mostly radio silent, offering very few comments on his spectacular fall from grace. As of early 2026, the industry blacklist is still firmly in place, with no major studios daring to attach his name to any upcoming projects. Then you have the chaotic trajectory of Shia LaBeouf, who built his name jumping from television sets to massive blockbuster movie posters. Most of us remember him as the goofy kid on the Disney Channel classic Even Stevens, a breakout role that actually snagged him a Daytime Emmy Award way back in 2003. He didn't stay in the kids' lane for long, transitioning into mainstream hits like the thriller Disturbia in 2007 and anchoring the Transformers juggernaut with the first movie alone, pulling in more than $79 million globally. He continued to level up, standing shoulder to shoulder with legends in 2008's Indiana Jones sequel and getting gritty for the war, Epic Fury, in 2014. These roles proved he wasn't just a blockbuster face. The guy had serious acting chops that generated heavy box office cash and genuine respect from critics. But while his star was rising, his personal life was spiralling out of control, plagued by legal drama and demons that eventually began to overshadow his talent. Starting around the mid-2000s, his name appeared in police reports as often as movie credits, with multiple arrests for disorderly conduct and public drunkenness piling up. Things got particularly ugly during a highly publicised bust in Georgia in 2017 that ended up making headlines everywhere. Police body cam footage leaked online showing him launching into an aggressive, hateful tirade, a moment that really soured the public's affection for the former child star. Although LaBeouf eventually owned up to his struggles with alcoholism and checked into rehab, the constant stream of chaotic incidents created a narrative of instability he just couldn't shake. However, the true reckoning arrived in December 2020, when the musician FKA Twigs filed a bombshell lawsuit accusing him of relentless physical assault and deep psychological abuse during their time together. The court documents were packed with terrifyingly detailed allegations about what went on behind closed doors. The story was so disturbing, it dominated the global news cycle, with major publications like the BBC and the New York Times running extensive deep dives into the accusations. It wasn't an isolated case either. Other women soon found the courage to speak up, painting a picture of a dangerous pattern of harmful behaviour. LaBeouf didn't fully deny everything. He issued a statement admitting he had been abusive to himself and those around him, though he still disputed some of the specific charges. He claimed to be actively in treatment and committed to fixing his issues, but the damage was done and his Hollywood momentum came to a screeching halt. Studios started treating him like he was radioactive, and several projects that were in development decided to move forward without him attached. He managed a quiet return in 2022 with the indie film Padre Pio, but it was a tiny release compared to the massive blockbusters he used to headline. In interviews that followed later that year, he struck a humble tone, reflecting on his toxic past and discussing his attempts to finally take accountability for his actions. And then there is the colossal downfall of Kevin Spacey. For over 20 years, this man was an absolute titan of the industry, commanding respect on both the big screen and television, like few others ever have. With legendary performances in 1995's The Usual Suspects and 1999's American Beauty, he secured 2 Academy Awards and solidified his status as an acting genius. He even revolutionised the streaming era, making the ruthless Frank Underwood in House of Cards an iconic character that defined the medium. His chilling performance helped the series rake in more than 30 Emmy nominations while he was at the helm. At the peak of his power, he wasn't just acting, he was running the show as the artistic director of London's Old Vic Theatre, proving his influence touched every corner of the arts. But everything imploded in October 2017 when actor Anthony Rapp went public with a harrowing story about Spacey making a pass at him back in the 80s. That one accusation broke the dam, and suddenly person after person stepped forward with their own uncomfortable experiences. It sparked massive media investigations and forced the institutions he was part of to launch deep dive internal probes into his conduct. The findings were grim, with the Old Vic eventually revealing they had received 20 separate accounts from former staff members describing inappropriate behaviour during his reign there. As the list of accusers grew, Hollywood hit the panic button, and studios scrambled to figure out how to distance themselves from him as fast as possible. It was a swift and brutal fall from the top of the mountain, changing his legacy from revered legend to persona non grata almost overnight. The consequences were instant. Netflix famously cut all ties, writing him completely out of the final season of House of Cards and leaving his character for dead. In a move that shook Tinseltown to its absolute core, legendary director Ridley Scott made the unprecedented decision to completely scrub Spacey from the finished cut of All the Money in the World back in 2017. With the clock ticking and the premiere looming just 6 weeks away, Scott brought in veteran actor Christopher Plummer to frantically reshoot every single frame Spacey had appeared in, effectively erasing him from the project overnight. As time marched on, the situation only grew darker for the disgraced star, as he found himself entangled in a complex web of serious legal battles on both sides of the Atlantic. Prosecutors in the United States and the United Kingdom levied multiple heavy criminal charges against him, turning his life into a never-ending courtroom drama. While he managed to dodge a prison sentence, most notably securing a not guilty verdict during a highly publicised London trial in 2023, and seeing other cases thrown out the court of public opinion, had already delivered its own damning judgment. These legal wins were essentially hollow victories that failed to scrub the stain from his name or undo the catastrophic damage inflicted upon his once pristine legacy. Hollywood executives and major studio heads turned their backs on him en masse, showing absolutely zero desire to invite him back into the fold. The red carpets that once welcomed him were rolled up tight, making it clear that restoring him to A-list status was simply not on anyone's agenda. Following the explosive scandals of 2017, the actor became a ghost in an industry he once dominated. His visibility plummeted and he largely vanished from the public eye, retreating into the shadows while the entertainment world moved on without him. Although he tried to keep a toe in the water with sporadic roles in obscure low-budget international productions, these projects barely made a blip on the radar. They were a far cry from the blockbusters he was used to garnering almost no media buzz or audience interest. Entertainment insiders and industry analysts have pointed out the glaring lack of any coordinated strategy to rehabilitate his image. There is no major PR push, no big studio backing, and certainly no large-scale comeback narrative being written for him in the current climate. Despite Spacey occasionally surfacing in interviews to express his desperation to get back to work and rebuild what was lost, the response from the powers that be has been deafening silence. Major distributors and streaming giants remain steadfast in their refusal to touch him, treating him as a toxic asset they simply cannot afford to risk engaging with. As we look back at the chaotic timelines we have explored today, it serves as a sobering reminder that every single individual on this list was once celebrated as a titan of the industry. They possessed undeniable gifts and remarkable talent that captivated millions before it all came crashing down. However, having your name on a marquee or a shelf full of awards offers no armour against reality. Fame, no matter how immense, ultimately cannot shield anyone from the severe repercussions of their personal choices and actions when the truth comes to light. The dramatic unravelling of these careers highlights just how fragile success really is in our modern digital age. In a world where every move is watched and every mistake is amplified, a lifetime of achievement can evaporate in the blink of an eye. We are not here to pass final judgment, but rather to reflect on the complexities of human nature and the flaws that exist within us all. These stories offer a chance to examine the difficult path of accountability and the hard lessons that remain long after the applause has faded. Now we want to hear from you in the comments section below. Which of these fallen stars do you find yourself sympathising with the most? And looking ahead, who do you honestly believe has a genuine shot at redemption and a true career comeback? If you found today's deep dive into celebrity culture fascinating, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our future uploads. Stay tuned for more shocking transformations and gripping then and now stories right here with us.